a reflection that embodies the spirit of AVINYA. Let's hear from him.
Introduce this episode of the AVINYA series, series on innovation by IIFM alums. It's my pleasure to talk about Paul Basil, who is the founder of several innovative institutions, the Rural Innovation Network, RIN, which morphed into Will Grow, and then Will Grow further became the Mentera Investment Social Impact Investment Fund. Of course, Will Grow continues, in fact works in several countries around the world. Paul is one of those serial innovators who soon after leaving the IIFM established the Rural Innovation Network along the lines, and I think inspired by the work that Vineet Rai, another IIFM illustrious alum, had started in Gujarat with Professor Anil Gupta, the Gujarat Innovation Action Network. I had the good fortune of being associated with all these individuals in their early years, sharing in their dreams and their frustrations. I remember Vineet stopping by at my place in Hyderabad on his way to Singapore when he was trying to raise money for Avishkar. Likewise, the early years of RIN with Paul, many discussions, lots of cul-de-sacs. We learned a lot, and we lived with the dilemma of how to make impact while ensuring that the enterprise is profitable. The IIFM itself is an amazing institution. In the early years, in those days, I used to run basics and we used to recruit regularly from IIFM. In fact, my relationship with the IIFM is from its birth, because when it was conceived, Professor Ranjit Gupta of IIM Ahmedabad was one of the people who wrote the report, and from that time onwards I've known about IIFM, and I was in fact involved with the initial training of the first batch of IIFM faculty in 1987 with Professor Rolf Linton and Ronnie Linton. Since then I served on IIFM's board for 6 years. So I've known a whole range of faculty and students from IIFM. And for many years I used to tell the basics HR department, keep it a secret. Don't tell others that IIFM has such good people, so that we can get the best management graduates. Of course, it didn't remain a secret for too long because of the work of many of your illustrious alums. And I'm happy that the AVINYA series is talking about some of them. Back to Paul, I know that he's now fully involved with Mentera. I've been on Mentera's investment committee for their first fund. And they've indeed made some very impactful, very innovative investments, which are showing great results. But the fact that Will Grow has incubated nearly 500 social enterprises and raised over 500 crores of angel investments, seed funding, is very creditable. And I hope that it will inspire many of the younger IIFM alum to do other AVINYA things. Thank you very much and all the best.
Shivam, you can stop sharing. Thank you. Thanks very much. So that video did remind us that brand IIFM is defined by alumni who turn purpose into practice. And building on that endorsement, please join me in welcoming Paul Basil. However, before that, I did notice in the audience, we also have Dr. Rekha Singhal. So welcome, ma'am. Good to have you here. And coming back to Paul, he's an IIFM alum and a pioneer who has helped shape hundreds of social enterprises across India. In 2001, he founded Willgrow, one of country's most prominent social impact. Sorry, I'm having a tech issue here. So one of country's most prominent social impact incubators, and later co-founded Mentera Capital. Over 2 decades, Paul has not only nurtured hundreds of social enterprises, but also built global networks like Pollinate Impact and platforms like Unconvention to strengthen the ecosystem. As well as the Center of Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship with IIT Chennai. An Ashoka Fellow, he also serves on the board of Kerala Startup Mission and on the CII Social Tech Startup Steering Committee. Paul lives in Kochi with his wife, and they have a daughter, Anjali, who is married, and she lives in Chennai with her husband. In this conversation, we'll go beyond the milestones to uncover the sparks, the struggles, the breakthroughs that have shaped Paul's incredible journey. Paul, it's an honor to have you for AVINYA. Let's dive right in. If you could talk to us about that journey, the start of that journey to IIFM and then up until Willgrow, that would be great.
Sure. But before that, thank you, Sandeep, thank you, Vineet, and thank you, Shika, for having me here and giving me this opportunity to share. So thank you all. And yeah, so well, I studied my engineering, and that taught me that machines and shop floor is not what I wanted for sure. And unknowingly, I was very inspired by the social work done by the Satya Sai movement. And this is strange because I was watching it because a couple of neighbors way back at home were actually involved in it. That, watching that from a distance and being a leftist state from where I belong, which is Kerala, both those possibly would have triggered the social commitment to me and therefore the social entrepreneur. Irma was obviously my first choice, but they didn't want me. And obviously because of that, I landed up at IIFM. It was summer of 1992. The interviews in April, May, hot and burning. I walked up the hill. I had a really fun interview with Professor Babu. And that was fun because in I think my CV or the application, in one of my hobbies, I had actually written that I sing. And then he really read that rigorously and then asked me to sing during the interview. Oh my God, I was really shocked. And I didn't realize that people would really read through all of these very, very in a detailed manner. Though it was a bit weird singing to a panel of interviewers, but it was really my respect for IIFM went up because I saw that the faculty had really read all of that. But as again, walking down that hill after the interview, we walked down and I still remember being given a lift by Professor Jaiswal in his brown Maruti van, his gray hair, his pan chewing, I still recollect. The campus and the ambience really, really inspired me. And I think all of that put together, finally I landed up there sometime, I think in June of 1992. From there on, it was fun. It was a fun 2 years. You know, I had this, it was funny because we went through all, as always, through the placement process. I never got placed. And that was really, really disappointing. But it was also fun because I still remember we had an interview for ORG. ORG, one of the priced consulting companies coming into the campus. I had no interest in ORG. I just went for their interviews, took their tests and things like that. And then I still remember Dr. Petya coming in to the classroom while we were doing our final exams and saying only one person got selected. And everyone was really tense. And then he says, hey, it is this guy. Oh my God, I was so disappointed. I didn't want to go there. But then finally, they didn't actually go through that whole recruitment. I think they abandoned that. So all of that was really, really fun. Um, it was really towards the end of the placement period. I landed up at NTGCF, was placed in Kolar, spent a lot of time with tree growers, cooperatives in that region, really got to the brass tacks of grassroots level work there. I then moved to working with fruits and vegetable cooperatives. Both of these taught me a whole lot of issues in social in a variety of developmental areas. Um, while I was working with fruits and vegetable farmers, I really liked that work. We were organizing them, we were providing them credit, the crops were insured, we were building farmers markets, linking farmers with traders. All of that was really great. But as we were building these co-ops, there was leakage of money at one of the co-ops, which I was actually facilitating and enabling. The community there really were angry that we hadn't built sound institutions, sound processes and systems, and they literally get out me. They really didn't allow me to leave for home from that particular co-op. That really taught me a whole lot of lessons around processes and systems, and that was a real learning experience, which led me to sitting down and creating a manual for these cooperatives over a week's time, and then subsequently institutionalizing it. So Shikha has been a fun journey into IIFM and from IIFM. And then it was then after that, all of that, I was very inspired by, to set up an incubator for enterprises. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the subsequent sections. But Will was a first organization, then of course, Mentor and Impact Investment Fund, and then subsequently Pollinate Impact, a global network of impact incubators and accelerators. Back to you.
Paul, it was good to hear, and what you went through at that point. What was the exact moment or experience that made you believe that social entrepreneurship was your calling? How did it feel that, you could take a leap into an area where the ecosystem barely existed?
No, I don't think it was a moment at all. It was a set of collective, immersive experiences that concretized, cemented my commitment to the social entrepreneurship space. And maybe I should go back to a little bit of that. I mean, it was empathy for the disadvantaged, a heart to help and support who were underserved, who were disadvantaged, coupled with the experience with cooperatives, seeing how ownership of communities can make a big difference, seeing how work at the grassroots can make a difference, entrepreneurial actions of some of these communities, and then seeing the advantage of individual entrepreneurship versus community entrepreneurship. So the best of social and impact and enterprise coming together without knowing the term social entrepreneurship. I was literally doing that. And then it was a fine day, morning over coffee. I saw this newspaper ad by Gyan. I didn't realize Vineet was doing that at that point. And then when I literally connected with that particular newspaper ad, it was Vineet behind it. And it was Gyan who was wanting to replicate in the South. I couldn't really resist that wonderful opportunity. I wasn't a born entrepreneur at all, but that particular opportunity to replicate something that was already made, where the prototype was really up and running and working in Gujarat to the South, replicate that in the South, really got me excited. And that is how the early days of Will Grow happened.
So from there, if we talk challenges and pivots in your journey, in the early days of Will Grow, what were the biggest challenges that you were facing, in convincing the stakeholders about the viability of social enterprises? What were these challenges?
I think there were a combination. I mean, keep in mind that it was early 2000. I still remember it was early 2000 itself when Air Deccan wanted to sell water in its flight, and this became I think, a question in Parliament where people said, hey, selling water is not acceptable. But I mean, times have really gone forward in a country like India. Corporates at that time was asking this question, is there a market among the underserved? And then C.K. Prahlad wrote the book in 2004, The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, and created some evidence around it. Non-profits, NGOs, were then asking another question, how can you really make money out of the poor? And while all of this was being asked, microfinance was so slowly showing models of impacting the poor while creating money through those models. So corporates was asking this question, the markets, is there really market among the underserved? Non-profits, NGOs were asking, how can you really make money out of the poor? And entrepreneurs, which were anyway relatively few in those years, in those times, was asking this hard question, which is a very pertinent question. Is it really worth taking the risk? Is this a career that I want to make? Can I make impact? Can I make money? People liked it, but is it possible? And then a whole lot of evidence around it, research and publications like Emerging Markets, Emerging Models, and many other, forums, conferences, all of that really started inspiring people to take to this. And what I realized through all of that was any change, any convincing to create a new movement requires 3 E's. It needs enterprises and a critical mass of such models. It needs entrepreneurs passionate to do this and run on that journey. It equally needs evidence. And if these 3 marry, enterprises, entrepreneurs, and evidence, and I think real, interesting models can really emerge.
So Paul, I was supposed to ask a specific question to you, which was about, did you ever face any challenge or did you feel like giving up? But I'll not ask that question. Let me test your memory. I don't think so anybody in IIFM or most people in the world actually know that Wilgrow has incubated a unicorn. Now, I want you to remember, if you do know, which unicorn have you incubated and where is it? What is current valuation as on date? I think you will know the unicorn for sure.
Of course. I was actually going to talk about it, but should I really name it? But it is a company which was headquartered in Chennai. It's called Unifor and is now headquartered in San Francisco. But that's an interesting story. I'll actually reserve for some of the next set of questions on balancing impact and.
No. But you tell it now. We will talk about the balancing part later. But you tell it now. So it's important for everybody here to know that while all of us had very humble beginnings in what we were doing, it is still possible to spot ideas that became unicorns and pretty much mentor, support, and handle them with institutions that themselves were actually trying to stay afloat. So I really want Paul to actually tell that story.
Yeah, so we saw while working in the IIT Madras environment, there were a whole lot of entrepreneurs coming out of that system, slowly and surely, but in the 2008, 2010 periods. And this bunch of them, which is Ravi and Umesh, extremely passionate, tier 3 born, bred, college graduates, moved to Chennai from, I think it was somewhere in East UP or West UP, and then moved down, was very inspired by the work of Professor Ashok Junjunwala around wireless technologies, and started building a company which was doing authentication of bank accounts. And therefore, it was they were doing voice-based authentication. And that was amazing because it didn't need signatures, it didn't need on-the-spot verifications and things like that. Now that was an amazing start, and we saw a great opportunity for it to be made more accessible, therefore inclusive and things like that. The energy, the clarity, which was very unusual in most entrepreneurs, and these guys hadn't done a lot of work before. And I could see the determination in, especially Umesh, as he was building this company out. We funded them. We supported them very closely, and one of my colleagues was a very active supporter, mentor of their work. And then slowly, steadily, they started growing. They started growing in India. They attract a whole lot of well-wishers, and then slowly this journey of growing outside of India happened. And technologically, they were really becoming powerful. And today, they're highly sought after company in creating AI-based solutions. And Vineet, I think they've raised around $1 billion till now. And a small holding in that company would have done a lot. But at that point, we had certain structural challenges, but amazing journey of theirs.
It's valued at 2.2 billion as of now. And Avishkar was also supposed to participate. I did not participate because of some of the reasons that probably Paul will do. But I was the chair of the investment committee at that time. We had actually put this money. And I think Paul and I were both very confident that this company will become very, very successful, even though they were actually pretty much, there was no revenue, nothing at that point of time. So it's a great story. Paul, my real question was, the question that I was given to ask you was, at any given point of the time during the journey, did you feel let down, despondent, not happy with the progress, money running out, salaries to be given, ambitions of people trying to grow faster than the institution, and how did you deal with that situation?
Well, I think probably there were 3 points is what I would think. Actually, maybe let me take a step back. The day I first met, I reconnected with Vineet regarding setting up of Pilgrow, in its early years called Gyan South and Rural Innovations Network. The Gujarat earthquake happened. And Vineet had to leave these conversations, and subsequently Deval Sangvi, who was a great supporter through the organization Impact Partners, today Dasra, stayed back, and we continued those discussions. That earthquake was a sign of another earthquake to happen, which was into 3 months of building Gyan South. We had a knowledge partnership, a significant partnership with Professor Dr. Anil Gupta and Gyan Gujarat Innovation Augmentation Network. 3 months, another earthquake happened, and that whole partnership had to be abandoned. And I was left in the lurch a little bit, saying, hey, we had the whole technical partnership inspiration from there. And here was a situation where that partnership was really was thrown out for reasons that I might not want to talk here. But Vineet stood like a rock. Deval and Impact Partners stood like a rock. And all of that led to overcoming that particular extremely difficult situation 3 months into the entrepreneurship journey. So I think that was one moment where I was asking, hey, what's happening? Is something gone wrong? The second happened in the initial part of my journey. I don't think it happened subsequently. But when I came in, because it was a replication of an entity, it was more like a CEO managerial thinking that I had. That soon had to go away or transform to an entrepreneurial level thinking. And that had its own frustrations and things like that. And one had to learn how to take risks, how to not depend on a whole lot of others, how to co-create, how to pull in support of others and inspire them to support you. And as opposed to a manager who actually gets a lot of that from others. So thinking like a promoter, thinking like an entrepreneur, that journey was a little bit of a tough journey because I wasn't a born entrepreneur. And that at many times in the first 2-3 years, had those moments of frustration. But then over 2 years, 3 years, I was able to cross that hump. Um, and a third one, which I thought is worth mentioning here, I had a personal loss in 2017. And when that happened, I realized that that was another time where, it was a significant a point of concern for me. I had my own, periods of grief and concern and things like that. But then the responsibility that you have and the commitment that you have to donors, team members, partners inspired me to really stay on course. But that was also the time that I really, really spent considerable time thinking about a succession plan. I realized that you just can't walk out just like that, or just drop off. And that was another learning of actually building succession plans. And today, with various other impact incubators across the world, as we're thinking about moving from individual to board driven management, it's not easy, but actually building succession plans, I thought, is super important. And that was a wonderful learning for me.
Yeah, I think
Paul?
2017 was something that it's a moment of grief for all of us, everybody here. But Shikha, please go ahead.
Thanks for sharing, Paul. If you build further on that, how do you manage the tension between financial sustainability and impact in your ventures? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so this tension is real, and many times I've had people ask this question, and it's like asking which lung is important. Is your left lung important or your right lung important? And in the business of impact enterprises, creating social impact while creating profitable, scalable, financially attractive companies, equally important. So having said that, we found that it's very, very, very difficult to achieve both. It's not easy. However, Will was working at very early stages. The tension was real, but it wasn't threatening, because we reconciled to the fact that as businesses evolve, it's possible that drift will happen. If the drift is intentional and manipulated, then we seriously have a problem. But if that drift is because you can't achieve impact while creating money, we all understand it. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happened in two examples. And in one example of a very, very successful enterprise of today, raised considerable money. They started off with voice-based authentication, as I was talking about earlier. But quickly they pivoted because the money was elsewhere: sales, customer service, AI, and things like that. Now that was not manipulative, was not intentional. It really happened because that was where money was, and there was not enough money on the other side. And I think that drift, should be allowed. And if it is not allowed, we'll choke these companies to death, and that's very unfair. So I think I would differentiate between intentional drift that needs to happen versus manipulative drift. But I think the other one was very interesting. I mean, we also funded a weather forecasting company. Their revenues have stabilized and has been kind of, I would call, stagnant for many, many years together, but at around something like 30-40 crores. But they subsequently pivoted to insurance for rural India, using some of this weather data, building better, insurance products. Now, that particular company was never started off with impact intent, but their model was so focused on insurance, and subsequently, initially on weather forecasting, which didn't have a impact focus, because they were also consulting and advising a lot of the power corporations for whom the weather data was important to manage. But then their subsequent foray using this information into insurance really concretized their commitment to impact. So that company today is called Gram Cover, which is working with all kinds of insurance for rural India. And Jatin was really, I would think, migrated to becoming a social entrepreneur, an impact entrepreneur from being a commercial entrepreneur. And so the lessons for us is in early stages, drift is possible, reconcile to that, and not accepting that I don't think is possible. The second, make sure as much as possible that business models have impact integrated into it. And that's what microfinance has done. Any businesses involving agri value chains, the impact is integrated into that particular model. Third, if you can ensure that pilots are clearly focused to create impact, and we watch those pilots carefully and see whether you can make money while creating impact, I think one can take a strategic call on whether to push on that particular segment at all. Try bringing in investors who are extremely aligned to creating impact is, I think, a fourth lesson that we've learned. Along the journey, using very clear data that allows you to measure impact while also laying financial returns into that whole process, allows you to understand whether you can juggle both together. And finally, be willing to let go of impact if that's difficult to achieve. So all of that has allowed us, in some cases, of course, we've compromised on impact, but I think that balance, striking that balance, synchronizing impact and returns is not easy to achieve, but some of these practices have helped us do both of that together.
Well, looking back, was there a single breakthrough, an event, a decision, or a partnership that changed the trajectory of what you were doing, what Wilgrow was doing?
Well, I spoke about the failed partnership with Gyan, but that itself was good because that actually pushed us into deep waters to think ourselves, build it ourselves. So that was good. Like pushing a baby into the pool. The second one was more funny. I was using a Yahoo email account and then slowly migrated to Gmail or maybe
Hotmail, not Gmail.
Yeah, Hotmail those days, yeah. And then I was using this Yahoo account and I had really was going to sign off on it. And when I see an email there from a particular person saying, hey, we're visiting India, we want to come and see your work. And then they came. They were very impressed, happy. This was the Lemelson Foundation in the United States. They did all of this in 2004. And their granting started from them. Until today, they're generous supporters of our mission, have supported us in various capacities, forms, and shapes. So that chance email, if I hadn't opened, maybe I would have lost the opportunity to get their funding and the generous support over the many years, which is super important in building lasting institutions, wouldn't have happened. So I think I would say that was a very interesting, funny moment.
So you didn't just build ventures, you actually built an entire ecosystem. So what made you realize that scaling impact meant going beyond Wilgrow?
Yeah, no, as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. And for me, it was really around building that entrepreneurship ecosystem involved literally 4 I's. The first I is inspiration. And today you don't need that as much. Of course you need it, but the role models are available. But the days of 2000 to 2010, the number of such entrepreneurs were limited. So inspiration was super important. We did that through conferences around social entrepreneurship in tier 2, 3 towns across India. So inspiration was one leg, and that required us to build the ecosystem and through these conferences. So inspiration was one. The second was immersion. And even when you're inspired, you want to try it out, just get a feel for it. And that happened through our Will Grow Fellowship program. So a whole lot of talent who came in, took the fellowship. And what I liked about it was people who went through it, some of them saying, this is not what I want, which is also great, because as long as you go through it, feel it, and then realize that that's not what you want to do, that's also very welcome. The third being what we call incubations. So inspiration, immersion, incubation. You need very generous early stage angel type support. And that's what Will Grow did for many years. We've now expanded that work through a global network called Pollinate Impact, which is a global network of impact incubators and accelerators all across the world, learning and sharing and collaborating with each other. And then finally, investment. You need really capital to, do to scale your enterprise, to grow and things like that. And that's where we then set up Mentera. So all of these organizations, these weren't organizations alone, but also interacting with many other actors in that ecosystem to drive and move that, catalyze the ecosystem.
Shikha, we can't hear you. I think you got muted.
Okay, I'm back on. Vineet, are you continuing from here?
I think Varsha is to be brought in.
No, she's coming a bit later. I did change the order a bit. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. So I think the question that I just wanted to ask you is, and this is where I think we had some differences, Paul. When you started doing many things, even though I was myself doing many things, but I used to be completely pushing you to be very focused. So when you started all these things, but I think there's some of the things that I think over a period of time became very integral to the way things evolved at Will Grow. Unconvention was one of them. But if I go back and look at and think about it of where today IIT Madras is, the way you actually went inside IIT Madras and built the center and many other things and many other partnerships, I think that was a pivotal moment to bring an institutional partnership. How did that come through? Because this was purely, maybe there might be some role of Ratan, but this was purely yours. You pretty much built on that relationship, slowly find yourself into IIT Madras Research Park. And then literally a lot of people from outside were confused between Will Grow and IIT's Research Park itself. So take us through the journey of how you built that partnership and brought it so deep and so close. And also our interaction with President Kalam, your own interaction with President Kalam, and how did it go?
Sure. No, so it was very clear that if one had to step up work with early stage innovators and entrepreneurs, and especially tech innovators, it needed a tech ecosystem. And we were in Chennai, and the best partner for that was IIT Madras. So IIT Madras was obviously on the radar. And so we started working in the hostels with students, slowly but surely and steadily. And then we also cultivated a few faculty relationships, again, slowly and steadily. And it so happened that two of our board members at that point, Ratan Roy and Ajay Narayanan, were IITM alumni. And that further catalyzed it. But what really did this was when this foundation, Lemelson Foundation, came into India and wanted to fund this program. They saw this small, nimble, fairly committed organization in Wilgo at that time, but they saw this institutional might and relevance of a tech partner in IIT Madras. And it was actually them who cemented a little bit of this partnership through that particular project. So that funding really brought us together. And that was a good critical mass of activity to get going. And once that happened, there was considerable trust. So initially, it was a program that was launched in partnership between IIT Madras and Wilgo to serve and incubate entrepreneurs. But slowly and steadily, we realized that a project mode is not useful. And what I did was I told them that I will move my office into IIT Madras campus, and they would join the governance with a faculty from their side being appointed. So I think in all possible ways, physically, we started getting closer. Governance, we started getting closer. But to build that, there was soft power with a whole lot of the relationships that were built. But it all came together: money, governance, physical proximity, the soft power, and all of that added to a making of a fairly strong partnership.
The reason I asked that question was I had done exactly opposite. When, of course, there was a reason for it. I had moved out of IIM Ahmedabad. You went into IIT, so it's a absolutely opposite approaches. But this IIT move, in my view, was a brilliant and a wonderful approach to go in and build it. And I think Professor Nagarajan and Dr. Anand, they all played a fantastic role. But what about President Kalam? I know you got me to get an award from him. So just my first major award, second major award, was actually from President Kalam on behest of Paul Basil, actually.
So we had a whole lot of, at that time, we were supporting a whole lot of grassroots innovators and entrepreneurs. And Dr. Kalam had just got off presidentship at that particular time. We wanted somebody really supportive of grassroots innovators and entrepreneurs. And President Kalam from Tamil Nadu was obviously the best choice for that. And all of that put together, Dr. Kalam gracefully accepted our kind invitation, especially being in IIT Madras. But what happened was the whole brand positioning that we got as a result of his visit. I still remember the accounts team at IIT Madras, which used to really, go through our accounts in too much of detail. Soon, when they realized the accounts team was referring vouchers to them, and they would say, "Hey, this is the program where Dr. Kalam visited," and immediately it gets approved. That kind of funny things that happened as outcomes which we never imagined. But Dr. Kalam was a great supporter of IIT Madras, and it was a wonderful opportunity to have him there. And then back this. So the media then wrote about it. All of that. So it was powerful brand building that happened as a result of the support of Dr. Abdul Kalam.
So, Paul, it's 25 years since that fateful day when we started having that conversation. Social entrepreneurship, impact investing, the term didn't exist. The impact investing was not there. What we were doing was unknown. We used to call ourselves whatever we felt like. But in those 25 years, the world has changed quite significantly. How do you look back and reflect in the evolution, and what are the key questions that still concern, bother, and pushes you to stay active in this space?
Yeah. No, but if I go back and look at this, everything was missing in those years, 2000. Pipeline of startups wasn't there. There was very limited seed and angel capital. There weren't incubators. There were very few government policies to support startups. There were very less talent to work with startups. And I still remember the movie Three Idiots, I think, created a whole lot of youngsters to actually get into the social sector. Parents actually saying, okay, now it's okay to do because that's what you're passionate about. But if you go back and look at now, if you just look at data, as of 31st December, I think what I have is 2024, there are 157,000 startups in India recognized by DPIT. Now that's a significant number, significant increase over the many years. I mean, 157,000 is, but you could argue that that number is nothing compared for a country like India. Incubators, we were around 20 or 30. So IIM Ahmedabad was really one, but there are many others around 20 or 30 in 2001. But now, between DBT supported, Atal Innovation supported, DST supported, Ministry of Rural Development, Agriculture Department, there's 1,000 odd incubators. So good entrepreneurs wanting support, it becomes easy to get that kind of a mentoring angel support now. Where was 30 was such a meager number for a country like India. Now we're talking about 1,000 and more coming up, in the years to come. So the growth of that, even if you take investments, the number of alternate investment funds, you will know this better, I think was something like 42 of them. I'm talking about 2013 or today, with the number of registered funds is something like 1,200 or something of that kind.
1550, 155.
Okay, great. So see the leap, and thanks to the ecosystem that has been built over time. Policies. Kerala, the state that I belong to, created its first startup policy. Created the first startup policy. Now, today, I think something like 31 of all the 36 states have their startup policies, but 27 of them were created in the last, I would say, 10 years, thanks to India's startup policy, which was announced in 2015-16. So this leap is unprecedented, and therefore the vibrance in the startup ecosystem. So a lot of things can improve, but I think we've made significant progress, and there's more to be done for sure.
Paul, if I can touch on one of the other partnerships, the Aspen Network for Development Entrepreneurs, how did that help in scaling impact? We've touched Unconvention, Center for Innovation. If you could talk about Aspen as well.
Yeah, so Aspen at that time was getting formed in 2010. This is not the Aspen Network, but the Aspen Network for Development Entrepreneurs. And this was their foray into building what they coined the term small and growing businesses. And like impact investment, that was another term that was actually getting popular in those days. So what it really did for us was the network was very powerful because it comprised of a whole lot of donor agencies. And every time we went for a conference of Andy, we would land up meeting a foundation and then leading to funding. So I think there was a huge value in that network in terms of ideas from the global north, capital flow from the global north, a lot of rigor in data and measurement that the global north actually contributed. But there was practice, there was experience, there was expertise in the global south. And that marriage between global north and global south was really well facilitated by Andy, not just Andy, but networks like AVPN, networks like GIN, Global Impact Investing Network, and many others. And we, especially with Andy was formed in Africa. Chapters were formed in Africa, India, and we hosted their India chapter at Wilgrow, and it continues to happen. But Wilgrow in Philippines, Wilgrow in Africa, all of them really hosted, and not hosted, but was on the steering committees of these chapters. So it was a very strong relationship that we really had with Andy over the last many years.
I think the institutional architecture, Paul, I think you touched upon it. I think it's probably, and Professor Srinivasan is not here, but I think for all those in different, and even IIFM, if anybody is interested in writing a case study, the institutional architecture that Paul has designed to take Wilgrow internationally, without disturbing the local one is an interesting thought process to consider for those who are on the fringe of for-profit and not-for-profit. It's an important one, and it should actually be documented, written, and shared. But Paul, succession planning is easy to talk about. Succession is a difficult one, and you have gone through it. Did you wake up one day thinking that what will happen to Wilgrow? Does it bother you even today? Can you sleep with peace, seeing which way it goes? And I can say it with some knowledge that it is not something which is comfortable and easy to do. More so if you actually have lived it through your life. So how do you reflect on that change, that transition?
Well, to be really honest, I haven't felt that not being part of that will go. By the way, 2020, when I stepped down as CEO, I continued to stay on the board. And then I did that for 5 years and then stepped down totally from the board in March of 2025. So, was a phased stepping out, if you will. But I've always practiced a little bit of a detached attachment. And because as a not-for-profit, and especially as a not-for-profit, the organization being a not-for-profit, you're basically a caretaker. You're not the owner. You're, in a sense, people trust you with resources, grants, and things like that. So to that extent, since you're a caretaker, appreciate it while it belongs to you. And when the time comes to let it go as it was never meant for you. So to that extent, I think I conditioned myself quite some time not to be too intertwined in it. So honestly, it wasn't really hard for me at all. And so one of my board members told me, hey, let's see, so every quarter they were watching, am I going to come back? So it was funny. And they gave me a whole lot of examples saying, hey, this person said the same thing like you, but then came back, so it was also a challenge that they put before me. So I think it was what I was practicing, a sense of detached attachment, but also the commitment to make that succession really work, alongside some of these challenges thrown at me, which was an interesting challenge to take up.
Yeah, for a lot of those who are listening, and it's very important to hear what Paul has just said. Probably a lot of you probably may not connect with it. But I think India's social sector has been plagued by the desire of leadership or trustees. Let me put it this way. All of us are trustees in some sense, especially not-for-profit, to hold on to the vision way past your own prime time. And what Paul has done is really path-breaking in some sense, because in our space, very few people have let go. When I say let go, let go. And the transition, therefore, is it requires you to be a saint. And we used to call Paul Saint Paul during the IIFM times. And Paul has actually demonstrated how to do that. And that, again, merits a case study. So anybody who's listening, professors in the audience, it is very important. There are very few case studies. Even Narayan Murthy struggled. He came back. So think about it. This is not a joke. This is something which is quite path-breaking. Sorry, Shikha.
No, it's fine. I think that's a very important point. I'm very conscious that we are slightly behind schedule because of some of the time we lost in the beginning. If you both are okay, we will extend by a few minutes at the end, and I will skip some of the stuff that I had in mind. But I do, just considering that, Paul, we haven't touched on Mentera yet. If you could talk to us a little bit about Mentera and what led you to start Mentera.
So as I mentioned, the 4 legs of the work: inspiration, immersion, incubation, and the 4th one was investment. At Wilgrow, we were running on grants. So obviously we couldn't be part of the upside, but also some of these companies didn't have enough capital. As I mentioned, in 2015, the number of venture funds were relatively low. I still remember Vineet telling me, hey, this is not a path that we should take. And not to say that we're super duper successful, but that really helped in capitalizing these companies across that value of debt, but also allowing scaling to impact and therefore scaling of impact. So Mentera was structured as a alternate investment fund. Started off as a small fund. The first fund was just 50 crores. Our second fund isn't big either, 160 crores, because we believe that with that kind of capital, we can deploy it in a wise manner to invest in what we call impactful companies. And we've done some of that. So we're at that stage where we are second fund. We've fairly completed our deployment, and hopefully we'll be raising our third fund shortly.
Yeah, very quickly, Shikha, I just want to give you some background. When Mentera was conceptualized, I was actually the chair of the board, and I was very vocal in being very vocal at the board also. And I want the audience to know that despite our very long friendship being together, we were actually very transparent and actually standing up and questioning each other. So I was one of those guys who actually questioned Paul Maxim at the board on Mentera. Of course, I actually helped him find his guy who was running Mentera as well. But it's very important for people to know that you can, even if you're friends or colleagues or partners, can be very candid and transparent. And we used to actually be very hard with each other when we used to take positions, partly because I thought it was important as a fiduciary responsibility to at least express myself. So just trying to bring that point into it.
Thanks, Vinny. Paul, if we can switch to family, how has your personal life, your, families, your values, how has all of that shaped who you are today and all the decisions you take professionally?
Well, a big positive role, and I think I wouldn't big credit to what they've done. So I think the first was, do what you like. And that was really, really supportive. That approach, which they were willing to give me an opportunity to do what I like, was, I think, the first big one. The second was when I set up Wilgrow. That was a time when I had young daughters, and parenting responsibility is such a big responsibility. So my wife not pursuing a professional career and taking a bulk of that parenting responsibility, I think was really the second big support. So when we travel a lot, when we're in the midst of peak work times and things like that, that parenting responsibility, which I think is not a great thing for me to say, but having that support, I think was really, really useful. But if you give me an opportunity now, maybe I would have struck that balance and orchestrated that balance a bit better is what I would think. So having that support, I think, was great. Of course, there was limited wealth creation in those days, and that did create some tension. But this do what you like was that North Star that allowed all of that tension to be resolved and move forward positively.
At this point, I would like to bring in another member of class of 94, Varsha Mehta, because she has a few questions she would like to ask you. Varsha, you want to come up on the video? Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Shikha. Paul, I'm fascinated listening to you talk about your journey. I would never have believed that you would become an entrepreneur, that you had it in you. I would have imagined you as being risk averse, but here you are, not only an entrepreneur, but encouraging others to become entrepreneurs, developing that entire ecosystem for promoting entrepreneurship. If you had to, my question is, if you had to pick one lesson from the decades of impact work that you've been doing, and that one lesson that every entrepreneur should know, what would it be? That's the first question. Would you like me to ask you the questions in one go, or you would like to respond to this first, and then I ask you the next set of questions?
Let me
if I may.
Let me take this question. I think for me, especially in the impact kind of work, I think being intentional about impact is super important. And the reason why I say that is because today, if you a lot of people come in because it's cool to be in impact. And I think being intentional about impact, being that at the core of your heart and soul, I think is super important. Now, it's not easy. At the same time, being realistic about realizing impact, and this is not in the conventional philanthropic type of work. In this space where you're pulling financial returns and impact together, tying it all together, you need to be realistic. I mean, you can't take a very a saintly approach, if you will. You got to be really realistic about it. So intentional about it, but it doesn't play out. Impact creation alongside financial returns doesn't play out. So in such times when there is a tension, being realistic about it and not dumping all of this because blending of financial returns and impact is not possible. So I would say be intentional about it. Don't see this as a cool career opportunity, but also be realistic about impact is what I would think for anyone who's wanting to play this game.
Varsha, we have time for one more question.
That's important advice. Just one more? Okay. So what leadership principles have guided you through your entrepreneurship journey, I would ask?
Yeah. I think it's been essentially three of them. One, as a leader, it's super important to set the direction. So since it's a journey, where you're traveling to is important. So now some of that direction might change, but setting the direction means having a dream, translating that into a compelling vision and mission. Because you're going to rally people around that and that direction. So direction might change, but that's okay. But having that translated into a compelling vision that you can attract people around. So that's, to me, is one super important element which has guided me. The second, aligning people. When you have people better than you, when you have people who have disagreements around various issues, all of them need to be aligned on that direction. So as a leader, it's important to align. And that's where I have faced the biggest struggles. And as an entrepreneur, building consensual leadership is not very easy. So I think it's a combination of a little bit of an autocratic consensus building. And I mean, you need to adopt some of that. So building alignment, I thought, was a bigger challenge. And the third, building commitment. So as a leader, you need to build the direction, alignment, and commitment. When I'm talking about commitment, I am not talking about commitment to the impact sector, because the people joining this are self-selecting this. So they're committed. The commitment to values, commitment to culture, and therefore exhibiting behaviors that reinforce some of those values and culture. That's what a leader, I think, is important to do. So direction, alignment, and commitment, I would say, are three pillars of my leadership journey.
Thank you. And thank you, Varsha, for stepping in. The next person stepping in is another member of class of 94. We have Jayesh Bhatia. Jayesh has a couple of questions as well, Paul. Jayesh, you want to come up on the video?
Yes.
Yes,
Without
Jayesh,
pressure.
for just about one or two questions.
Surely. Father Paul, lovely to hear you. Lovely to see you. Looking young as ever. Before I come to the question that I want to ask, I do remember during our campus days in kind of, I think, early part of the first or the second term, there was a test for you to read out and how much you know Hindi. And Vineet or Manish Verma, either of the two, got you a Hindi book, which you read the whole chapter without understanding what it actually meant. So that, do you recall that?
I remember it, but I don't remember the book.
A book also I don't remember, but that
Yeah.
It was my book in my room.
Yes. So it is, but lovely to hear you, Paul, walking us through the journey. But in all of this, I have two quick questions. One, in this whole 25 years of starting through RIN and now Unconvention and Pollinate, and what do you think is your legacy of all the work that you've done so far?
Yeah. So I think building institutions that care for early stage entrepreneurs, as I think what I want to leave with, all of these organizations that we've built, whether it is the incubator in Wilbur, the investment fund, which is Mentor, Pollinate Impact, which is the network of impact incubators globally, all of it really revolves around supporting, caring, being empathetic, providing that angel support to early stage entrepreneurs. So I would think that leaving a dent and impact on that set of entrepreneurs is what I would think, what I'd be super excited about. And if that can happen and will sustain as institutions and missions.
Yeah, I'm sure you've already demonstrated that, and what we've been hearing for the last hour or so, that's absolutely brilliant in terms of the institutions that have been created. As we, in this whole era of global changes, political and economic, where do you think is this whole impact entrepreneurship? What are the next frontiers for that? In India in particular, given that we're looking at Viksit Bharat by 2047, and globally, especially Africa, and that'll be really good to know what those next frontiers are. That would challenge you and people like you who build this ecosystem to work for.
So I think educated India lifts people out of poverty or from being disadvantaged. Healthy India makes sure that people don't become poor or disadvantaged. And these two go hand in hand. And you need strong rural incomes, and of course urban incomes too, to ensure that people spend on education and on their health. But having said that, I see many of the government-run welfare programs, both in education and health, can be done by the private sector. So the question is, can our PHCs run by social enterprises, primary health centers? There's vast potential for affordable, accessible healthcare solutions. Innovations are right now: telemedicine, mobile health, low-cost diagnostic treatments, and a variety of such things. So much of our population actually depends on primary health centers. So I'm using that as an example to say the opportunities for social entrepreneurs to come in is tremendous. Similarly, can our schools be run by the private sector? 65%. It was earlier, I think, something like 90%. But 65% of our kids go to government schools. And the teachers are paid much more than private schools. But delivery is poor. We've seen all these ASER reports talking about learning outcomes and the challenges for it. So question is, can social enterprises, impact entrepreneurs run schools? The Delhi government has run a couple of piloting interesting experiments, and they've demonstrated that the government itself can do it. But there's been a whole lot of social enterprises they've run that in partnership with. But given EdTech, given some of these models that exist, and coming together with better learning outcomes, vocational skills. I think those are frontiers which have already been demonstrated by some of these enterprises. And I think that can operate at scale. But all of this is possible because I think there's a growing interest in entrepreneurship, there's technology adoption, there's huge governmental support, Startup India, Digital India, all of that. But more importantly, a changing, I think, a citizen mindset that is willing to pay for services, but also being demanding of government services.
Lovely. Great, Paul. Catch up with you soon. Over to you, Shikha.
Thank you, Jayesh. And with that, we actually come to the end of main set of questions, but we do have a rapid fire round for which we have enlisted Anand Sinha's help. Anand is also class of 94 and has kindly agreed to step in for heavy lifting this round. Anand, over to you.
Paul, these are the most important questions you're going to be asked this year, okay? It's lovely hanging out with you, with all my classmates. It's the Sunday evening. It's 8 p.m., so cheers. I don't know if you're going to be drinking anything after this. But anyway, so here's some really important questions. Chai or coffee?
Coffee.
Wouldn't have expected
Awesome.
anything. One word that defines your leadership style.
Oh, I said this earlier, but consensual.
Your favorite book on social entrepreneurship, How to Change the World, is what you told me, but you have another book. No.
Oh, bottom of the pyramid.
Ah. A social enterprise you admire, other than Bill Grow.
Arvind I Care.
Oh, good one. That's a good one. One habit that keeps you grounded.
Humility.
Your proudest achievement so far.
Come
on.
I think building will grow.
Okay. Favorite city for innovations. Where does it happen?
Bangalore.
Oh, not Chennai. Okay. Who inspires you the most?
We're also in Bangalore, so.
Who inspires you the most?
I mean, he's no longer there, but Dr. Verghese Kurian, who set up Amul, really inspired me.
Do you remember he walked into one of our exams? That was one of the reasons I also went off to MTGCF. Amazing. Your favorite quote?
Well, that's a tough one. But if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
This is on one of the largest walls in the Gates Foundation at Seattle. Melinda insisted that this would go up there. But people keep on claiming as to who said it. I think it's kind of lost. It's supposed to be some African proverb. One skill every entrepreneur must have.
Perseverance. Oh, skill. Did you say skill?
Skill. Perseverance is also skill. But yeah.
Insight gathering.
Oh, nice one. Okay. Biggest risk you ever took?
Well, will grow, I think.
Will grow so far has been the answer to 3 questions, so we know it's really important. If not impact investing, what would you be? What would you be doing?
I think I would have been a panchayat president in my hometown.
Would you have been a panchayat president, or would you have been like a sarpanch pati, right? Is the question. Okay. Your go-to source for inspiration?
Oh my God. TED videos.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. One word of advice for young change makers. Keep it short.
Optimism blended with realism.
Very nice. Favorite way to unwind?
Chill with family.
As always. One risk you took that scared you but paid off big time?
3 months into will grow. That risk and today's will grow, I think, is great.
That's 4 Wilgrows as answers. Your favorite IFM faculty member or class and why?
I really like organizational development and dynamics. And Dr. B.R. Mehta, he was chill, unlike a couple of others who were really, I was scared of him.
Chill, yeah. As to whether he's most memorable. Okay, there's one more question from another classmate who's sitting in the other room here, but she said she doesn't want to come on video to ask it, right? She said, what is one food that you will remember most from the mess, good or bad? Anything you remember about the mess?
The soya chunks, soya curry there. because I used to be a beef fan, and coming to Bhopal, this was not there, and soya chunks was the best for me.
So non-Malayali. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that was brilliant. Thanks a lot. I will apologize to my audience that we have run out of time. So I'm going to start the closing process here. If you do have questions, and let me, if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to Paul. He's in the alumni groups as well, or via the Alumni Association. Please do that. Paul, thank you so much for sharing such an honest and inspiring journey. Your story reminded us that impact is not just about ideas, but about a lot of resistance and partnerships. To everyone watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Paul's journey resonated most with you? Write to us, write in the alumni groups, get the conversation going, and let the dialogue on innovation and entrepreneurship going in this community of ours. And before we finish, I do have a few announcements. President's Challenge, well, the class of 94 gave it a good shot, I believe. You did give your best shot, and we saw many new faces joining the event today. And while the target stayed out of reach, every effort counts, and your energy reminded us that spirit is timeless. Well done. Mark your calendars for AVINYA 4 with Snehal Verma, class of 2018, and Atish Khan, class of 2009, co-founders of Nature Dots, a climate tech venture bringing AI to water ecosystems. We will also see a change in the AVINYA panel going forward. Vineet has decided to step back from AVINYA due to other commitments. We'd like to thank Vineet for his role in AVINYA's creation and the energy and passion he brought in to get it going. His investor, entrepreneur perspective pushed the conversations to a higher bar, for sure. We do have a fantastic replacement for Vineet, though. If you can guess, I'm very thrilled to share that Paul Basil has agreed to step in as AVINYA's co-host going forward. Thank you so much, Paul. And Vineet, would you like to share a couple of lines before we finish?
Succession planning from Paul. With Paul, by Paul.
Thank you. Sandeep, anything from your side before we let Vineet go?
Yeah, no, I think Vineet, thanks for doing this for us. And I think when we talk of entrepreneurship amongst IFMites, your name comes up first. And of course, Paul is close behind. Now, I think Paul will step ahead of you because you will take the back seat. But thanks for doing it. And I know you will step back from AVINYA, but you are there for all of us and budding entrepreneurs of the IFM community. So anyone who needs help can always reach out to Vinny. Thank you for doing this. And Paul, your story was incredible. Your fame has reached around the globe, and I lost touch with you since after I left India. But then I met you in New York, and then I realized how important and big Villagro has become. And I had some questions, but I'll keep it for another occasion, and maybe when we meet for AVINYA 4, we will take up those questions. And one word for you, Shikha, I think you are getting better by episodes. This is very professional, and in the beginning I thought maybe you are trained in BBC or something. The way you opened up, it was amazing. And it's great to see your enthusiasm in not only AVINYA but some other initiatives of the BOG, and I'm very, very happy that you are leading this AVINYA for all of us. And that's about all from now. I think we've short our time.
Thank you, Sandeep. My last one, and since Sandeep has already referred to it, this is not an AVINYA topic, but we would really like to urge all of you to fill in the Alumni Group Health Insurance Survey form that has been circulated in the groups. We need as many responses as possible to develop a solution. So please do it for the love of IIFM and this community. Thank you, everyone, and see you on March 15th for AVINYA 4th at 7 p.m. India time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, and
Thank you.